Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. She raised her glass and tilted her head, eyes gleaming under the chandelier's warm light. "You're just a soldier. What can you even offer me?" She laughed. They laughed, like it was some kind of joke. My heart didn't just sink, it detonated. I hadn't been home more than 2 weeks. Still carried desert dust in my boots and stitches on my left shoulder. Still heard the screams when I closed my eyes. But this was supposed to be peace. Family. Her. The woman I fought to stay alive for. Instead, I sat at her family's dinner table like a stranger in a movie scene I didn't belong in. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Her sister snorted. Her father smirked over his wine. Someone muttered, "Lighten up, man, she's just playing." No, she wasn't. She knew exactly what she was doing. For years of loyalty, of FaceTime calls from war zones, of care packages, promises, letters soaked in perfume and dreams, all reduced to a punchline. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. "I'm not hungry," I said quietly, placing my napkin down. "Marcus, don't be dramatic." She rolled her eyes. I stood. She raised an eyebrow, smiling smug like she'd won something. "You're right," I said. "I'm just a soldier." Then I turned and walked out. No plate finished. No shoes on at the door. No goodbyes. Just the sound of her laughter trailing behind me like a scar I'd carry forever. Outside, the night was cold and still. But in my chest, a war had just begun. Before we move ahead, I just want to say, your support truly means everything. We're building something special here, and our next big goal is reaching 10,000 incredible subscribers. If you're feeling the emotions in these stories, imagine what's still to come. Subscribe now, be part of this amazing journey, and let's keep growing together. Your one click can make a real difference. Let's continue the story. The door shut behind me like a final breath. I didn't slam it. I didn't scream. That's not how soldiers move. That's not how I was trained. Silence is how you survive. I got in my car and stared at the steering wheel. Hands trembling. Jaw locked. Rage coiled in my gut like a snake too big for its cage. But I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just drove. The streets were quiet. Too quiet. Like the world had conspired to give me space to break. But I wouldn't. Not for her. Not for any of them. At home, the apartment was dim. Balloons drooped in the corner. "Welcome home, Marcus," still hung across the window in glittery letters I put up myself. Vanessa was too busy to help decorate. I'd made excuses for her. Stupid. I stood there in my dress blues, the medals still pinned, the rank on my sleeve still crisp, and felt like a ghost in my own damn life. No one called. No texts. The family dinner was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it was an execution. I sat at the kitchen table, stared at the empty chair across from me. The one where she used to laugh, tease, dream with me. Now it was just empty. I reached into my duffel bag, pulled out the dog tags I wore every day for 3 years. One for me. One for my buddy, Jeff, killed by an IED 6 months ago. I gripped them hard enough to hurt. "I made it back, Jeff," I whispered. "But I don't think this is home anymore." The tags clinked in my hand like a funeral bell. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't staying here. I met Vanessa at a bar just before my second deployment. She was loud, sharp, wild, the opposite of everything military life forced me to be. She kissed me on the first date and said, "Promise me you'll come back in one piece." I promised, and I kept it. Letters turned into video calls. Photos. Good morning texts, even when I hadn't slept in 2 days. I thought it meant something. That she meant it when she said, "I'll be here waiting." But maybe she was just playing house with a soldier fantasy. Maybe I was just a story to her. I scrolled through our old messages that night. My hands shook as I reread them. "I miss you like crazy. No one gets me the way you do. Can't wait till you're home for good." Lies. Photos of us on her rooftop. Her in my hoodie. Laughing, lips smudged with hot chocolate. God, I was blind. I thought about proposing. I'd picked out the damn ring overseas, hid it in my boots so it wouldn't get lost. That same ring now sat buried in my gear, a weight that mocked me with every step. Then the worst came. I opened Instagram. Vanessa, dressed up, sitting on some rooftop bar. Not alone. The guy? Tech bro look. Slick hair. Rolex flashing. Her caption? Leveling up. And there it was. Everything I fought for, bled for, nearly died for, reduced to a goddamn punchline and a cocktail. I clenched my jaw until my teeth hurt. For years. And this is what I got? No. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something else. The next morning came slow and gray. Rain tapped against the window like a rhythm I didn't ask for. I sat on the edge of my bed, still in my dress blues, now wrinkled from sleeping in them. I hadn't meant to. Just didn't have the energy to take them off. I opened the fridge. Empty, except for a half bottle of ketchup and some expired milk. I laughed. It sounded hollow. I picked up my phone, thumb hovering over Vanessa's name in my contacts. Delete. No hesitation. No last text. Just gone. I scrolled further. One name stood out like a flare in the dark. Cruz. My brother from another mother. We'd served together in Fallujah. He took shrapnel in the chest and still carried the scar like a medal. I hadn't seen him in months. I hit call. He answered on the first ring. Hill. Thought you died on me. Not yet. I muttered. You free. You sound like you need whiskey or a fight. Lucky for you. I've got both. Cruz's apartment smelled like cigar smoke and burnt coffee. The TV was on mute, playing a UFC rerun, but he barely looked at it. He tossed me a cold beer and sat down. You look like shit, he said, studying me. Thanks. You gonna tell me what happened, or should I just assume it's a woman? I didn't answer. Just handed him my phone and showed him Vanessa's post. He read it. Whistled. Damn. That's cold. You two were, what, for years? For years, 3 months, 12 days. He raised an eyebrow. You counting like it's a prison sentence. Feels like one, I said, cracking open the beer. He took a sip. You didn't deserve that. Not even close. I stared out the window. I gave her everything, Cruz. Letters. Loyalty. Half my soul. He leaned forward. Then take the half that's left and build something better. I looked at him, and for the first time since I walked out of that dinner, a thought struck me with clarity. I don't want her back. I want to become someone she'll never have access to again. Chapter 5. What they didn't say later that night. Cruz lit a cigarette and stepped out onto the rain-slicked balcony, his silhouette framed against the city lights. I followed, nursing my third beer and a knot in my chest that wouldn't loosen. You ever feel like you died over there? I asked quietly. And the version that came back isn't the same? Cruz exhaled smoke. Every damn day. Silence hung between us. Not awkward. Just familiar. Like two ghosts learning to speak again. Then he said, You want to know something worse? I turned to him. I heard about Vanessa weeks ago. My stomach dropped. You what? He didn't flinch. I didn't tell you because I didn't have proof. Just whispers. Old mutuals. Rumors. One guy saw her at some tech party, hanging off some VC douchebag's arm. I clenched my fists. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you were coming home to her. And I didn't want to be the one to break the illusion. That hurt more than I expected. But he wasn't wrong. She humiliated me, Cruz. Publicly. In front of her family. You think they didn't know? He said, flicking his cigarette. Her old man? The sisters? Please. They played along. Let you walk into that trap blind. I felt heat crawl up my neck. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was a coordinated hit job on my dignity. She said, You're just a soldier. Like I was some obsolete toy she outgrew. Cruz turned, face stone serious now. Then it's time to stop being just a soldier. I looked at him, confused. He smiled, but it wasn't kind. It was sharp. Calculated. I've got an idea. Crazy one. You game. What kind of idea? One that turns this pain into purpose and puts you at the head of a table no one can laugh at. And just like that, the fire in my gut started to change. It wasn't rage anymore. It was resolve. Chapter 6. Deployment scars. Cruz's idea sounded insane. At first, a restaurant, I repeated, raising an eyebrow. Not just any restaurant, he said, pacing the living room like he was briefing a mission. Veteran-owned, veteran-run, high-end, exclusive, discipline in the kitchen, loyalty on the plate. Cruz, I can barely cook scrambled eggs without burning them. He grinned. Good. That means you'll learn the right way. I laughed, then caught myself. It was the first time I'd laughed in weeks. Why food? I asked. Because food is memory, he said, grabbing a notebook from his shelf. Food is war and peace in one bite. You think civilians understand suffering? Feed them the kind of soul-cooked survival we know, and they'll pay whatever you charge. The way he spoke, it wasn't a business plan. It was war strategy. And I understood war. We started small. Sketches. Ideas. Themes. A kitchen run like a platoon. Men and women who'd served, now plating 5-star meals with precision. No screaming. No chaos. Just focus. I couldn't sleep that night. My brain buzzed. Instead, I walked into my kitchen, pulled out a can of beans and a cold MRE from my deployment stash. Heated them together. Sat down and ate in silence. It tasted like memory. Sand. Blood. The smell of diesel. But underneath that, something else. Pride. I'd made it through hell with nothing but a rusted rifle and a heartbeat. Surely I could learn to cook. The next day, I met Cruz at a rundown, boarded-up storefront on 5th and Mercer. This is it? I asked. He looked at it like a general surveying a battlefield. This is where we rise. And even though the place smelled like mold and looked like a hurricane hit it, I felt something in my chest click into place. It wasn't just a restaurant. It was revenge. Served slow. Cooked to perfection. The next week passed like a blur of ash and adrenaline. We spent every morning gutting the old storefront. Moldy drywall torn down by hand. Rusted nails pulled like infected teeth. Sweat poured, tools clanged, and something inside me started to shift. Like layers of grief were being ripped out with every swing of the sledgehammer. But at night, when the hammer stopped and the silence crept in, I still heard her voice. You're just a soldier. And that laugh. One night, after a 14-hour shift, I collapsed on the floor with an energy drink in one hand and my phone in the other. Against my better judgment, I opened Instagram. She was still there, smiling, champagne in hand, standing next to that walking cliché in a linen blazer, all smug jawline and stock options. The caption read, "Grateful for the upgrade, #no looking back, upgrade." It was one word, but it hit harder than a bullet. I stared at it for a long time, and something strange happened. I didn't get angry. I got calm, because in that moment, I realized she'd saved me. Saved me from a life of slow suffocation. From being the dependable fool who paid bills while she fantasized about yachts and tech brothers. I closed the app, deleted it, for good. Let her keep her champagne prints. He could buy her things. He could show her off. But he'd never know what it meant to be forged in pain, to build something from the bones of betrayal. And when we opened, she'd see my name on every headline, my face on every screen. But she wouldn't be on the guest list. The building was almost stripped clean now, bare bones and broken tiles. Cruz showed up that morning with a surprise. A blowtorch, a steel sheet, and a custom-made metal branding stencil. He handed me the torch. "Time to leave your mark, brother." I held the flame over the stencil and pressed it against the steel weed mounted near the entrance. The hiss echoed down the empty hallway. When I stepped back, I read the scorched-in name aloud. Section 8. Cruz grinned. Where they discharge the broken. Now where we rebuild them. I couldn't stop staring at it. I thought of the kid I was at 22, saluting officers, scared but willing. I thought of the blood I'd spilled, the men I'd buried, the woman I'd trusted. I wasn't that man anymore. Later that night, I went home and pulled out the last box. Everything I hadn't touched since the breakup. The ring. The photos. Her letters. I opened one. Read the first line. "I don't know who I'd be if you didn't come back to me." I burned them one by one in the kitchen sink. No music. No fanfare. Just flame and closure. By the time the last letter turned to ash, the apartment felt lighter, like someone had moved out. I stared at myself in the mirror. My beard had thickened. My eyes looked older, but not tired, focused. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about evolution. And I was done being anyone's cautionary tale. A week later, the shell of the restaurant had transformed. Clean concrete. Open beams. The kitchen framed out in gleaming steel. Cruz called me in early, grinning like he'd robbed a bank. "I've been thinking," he said, sliding a stack of menus across the table. "We don't just cook food." I picked one up. The logo was minimal. Sleek. Section 8. No rank. No rules. "We serve stories," he said. "Every dish has a name. Not after some French chef, but after the people who survived." He flipped open a draft. FOB ribs slow-cooked, the way we used to in the field. Midnight watch soup, hot, bitter, and sharp. Last letter lamb chops for the ones who never came home. I stared at him. "You're not building a restaurant. You're building a damn memoir." "Exactly." He leaned forward. "You think she would have laughed if she saw this version of you?" I smiled. "No. She would have begged to be part of it." He clinked his bottle against mine. "But she won't be." I looked around the unfinished dining room. No tablecloths. No lies. Just fire and steel and sweat. This wasn't about pretending anymore. This was real. And soon, the whole city would taste the truth. The first knife I bought for the restaurant cost me more than my first car. Japanese steel. Hand-forged. Balanced like it was made for war. When it arrived, I held it in both hands like a weapon. The blade shimmered under the construction lights as if it already knew blood. Cruz smirked. "Looks like you're about to re-enlist." I didn't laugh. I took the knife and walked into the gutted kitchen. The space still echoed with dust and old ghosts. But in my head, I saw it already, flames roaring, plates clattering, a full dining room gone silent after the first bite. I wasn't dreaming. I was seeing the mission to become undeniable. The next few weeks were a blur. Early mornings. Late nights. We built it all from the ground up. Tile by tile. Bolt by bolt. No investors. No shortcuts. Just two veterans and a pile of grit. I'd wake up before the sun and train like I was back in boot camp. Not for muscle, for discipline. Then I'd head straight to the site and lay into it. Wiring, plumbing, tasting, designing. Every screw tightened was one more brick between me and the man she thought I was. I started learning under a real chef Cruz knew, Chef Madani, an Iraqi immigrant who'd cooked for generals in Baghdad. The man barely spoke, but when he did, it was always surgical. "Knife doesn't make the cook," he said, placing my blade on the counter. "Precision does." He made me chop onions blindfolded. Cut perfect julienne strips by feel. I bled. I swore. But I didn't quit. Every burn on my hand was a badge. Every dish was a line in my comeback story. One day, I stood back and looked at the skeleton of the kitchen. No mirrors. No applause. No cameras. But something inside me whispered, "You're building a kingdom, and they don't even know yet." We didn't hire chefs. We recruited survivors. Dishwashers who'd served in Afghanistan. A line cook who used to be a combat medic. A pastry genius who once defused bombs. They all had the same look in their eyes, worn, quiet, deadly focused. Like me. We weren't building a team. We were forming a unit. I told Cruz, "No one gets a job here unless they've lost something." He grinned. "Then we'll be overqualified." Every day after construction, we'd gather in the unfinished kitchen and cook whatever we could afford. Spam. Potatoes. Lentils. We called it Field Hour. Cruz had a saying, "If we can make this taste like 5 stars, we can make anything." That's where the recipes began. From fire, not books. One night, I tried to recreate the rib stew I once made for my platoon during a blackout in Kandahar. It was made in a helmet back then. No? It simmered in a cast iron pot as stories swirled around us. Madani watched from the corner, arms folded. When he finally tasted it, he gave the slightest nod. "You cooked it angry," he said. "Good. That's flavor people remember." We wrote every recipe by hand. Not by measurement, but by memory. The cornbread reminded Cruz of home in Texas. The fire-charred chicken reminded one of our servers of his last meal before deployment. Each dish came with a name, a face, a scar. And when people asked about the menu one day, they'd taste grief, resilience, and love, and not know why they couldn't stop eating. This wasn't just cuisine. This was storytelling with fire and flesh. Opening night was still months away, but the pressure was already crushing. Our suppliers missed deadlines. The oven broke. The walk-in freezer flooded after some idiot forgot to seal the valve. I wanted to punch a wall. Instead, I diced 30 cloves of garlic until my knuckles went raw. It calmed me. I remembered a night on patrol when we were ambushed. No backup. Just me, Cruz, and 2 others bleeding in the dark. We made it out because we stayed silent and moved with purpose. Same rules now. No panic. No noise. Just precision. Cruz pulled me aside that night, his sleeves covered in grease. You're pushing too hard. We're behind schedule. You haven't eaten in 12 hours. I didn't respond. He tossed me a fresh slice of grilled flatbread we'd been testing. I ate it standing up. You still dreaming about her? He asked suddenly. I didn't answer. You better not be building this for her, he said, serious now. Because that makes it about her. Not about you. That hit hard. She's a ghost, I muttered. This is a message. To her. To everyone who ever laughed at someone rebuilding themselves. He nodded. Good. Then finish it. So loud the world can't ignore it. We finished framing the open kitchen window that night. I imagined myself standing there, fire behind me, knives flashing, the restaurant full of eyes watching and wondering, who is this man? Answer, not who I was. Not who she remembered. But everything she said I could never be. The night before our soft launch, I didn't sleep. Not out of nerves. Out of calculation. Every step was planned like a mission briefing. Timers. Walkthroughs. Backup plans. If a dish hit the past 10 seconds too late, it didn't leave the kitchen. If a server hesitated when asked about the menu's meaning, they were benched. Section 8 wasn't just food. It was theater with scars. The launch was small, 10 handpicked guests. No press. No influencers. Just civilians who knew nothing about us. That was the point. We wanted real reactions, not flattery. Cruz adjusted his tie in the mirror and laughed. Can't believe I'm wearing a damn suit to serve cornbread. I checked my cuffs. Better than wearing dress blues for people who spit on them. He didn't argue. We opened the doors at exactly 7 p.m. The lighting was low, the music soft, an instrumental version of a soldier's lullaby I once heard in a forward operating base. The walls were bare concrete, framed only by photos of veterans. No names, just eyes. We moved like clockwork. Starters out in 4 minutes. Main course in 20. Every bite had history. Every server told a story with the plate. Then came the moment. A woman at table 4 took a spoonful of our lamb stew, last letter lamb, and stopped mid-chew. She covered her mouth and started crying. Her husband leaned in, alarmed. What's wrong? She shook her head. It tastes like my grandfather's kitchen. He was a World War II vet. He used to make this exact dish before he passed. She looked toward the kitchen window. I met her eyes. She didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. Because in that moment, we knew we'd done it. Not impressed people. Not trended. Connected. After the soft launch, something shifted in me. I stood outside the restaurant as the guests left, coat buttoned, wind brushing through my clean-shaven jawline, and realized I didn't recognize myself anymore. Not in a bad way. In a reborn way. Cruz came out with 2 glasses of whiskey, handed me one, and nodded at the street. That was real. Not luck. I took a sip. No, that was precision. We stood there in silence for a minute. Then he asked, "You ever think she's watching all this?" I didn't even flinch. Let her. Let the whole damn city watch. The next morning, I went to a custom tailor downtown. The man raised an eyebrow when I walked in wearing a plain hoodie and boots. You sure you're in the right place? I'm not here for fashion, I said. I'm here to be remembered. He measured in silence. I picked charcoal black, fitted, sharp, military lines, subtle but commanding. When I tried it on, the mirror didn't show a broken veteran. It showed a commander. The kind of man people didn't underestimate anymore. I wore that suit to our first full booking night. As guests filled the room, I stayed behind the line, watching them eat, laugh, cry. The hum of success building in the air like a rising tide. And then it happened. One of our new hostesses, Rachel, walked up with a look of shock. "Sir, there's a name on the new reservation list you might want to see." I raised an eyebrow. She showed me the tablet. "Vanessa Parker. Table 1. Saturday night. 8 p.m. The room faded. My heartbeat didn't race. My jaw didn't clench. Instead, I smiled, took a slow breath, and said, "Confirm it." The days leading up to Saturday passed like slow-dripped adrenaline. Cruz noticed me prepping with a little more focus than usual. Sharper. Tighter. "You good?" he asked one night as I cleaned the same knife for the third time. "I'm better than good," I said. "I'm ready." We kept a low profile for a reason. No media, no interviews. Word of mouth only. People assumed we were backed by some faceless investor or a retired CEO. The mystery gave us power. I never used my full name publicly. My face wasn't on the website. Socials were locked down. Vanessa had no idea who owned Section 8. And that was perfect. When Saturday came, the team was briefed. Only Cruz, Rachel, and I knew what was coming. Rachel was nervous. "You sure you want her served at table 1? That's front row to the kitchen window." "That's exactly where I want her." At 7:58 p.m., she walked in. I watched from the shadows. Her hair was shorter. The same expensive perfume I'd once bought her for her birthday drifted through the room like a haunting. She was arm in arm with someone new. Tall. Flashy. Loud laugh. The kind of man who talks more than he listens. Rachel walked up and greeted them with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Section 8. The owner has requested a personal favor. He'd like you, Miss Parker, to serve at table 1 tonight." Vanessa blinked. "Excuse me." Her date chuckled. "That's hilarious. Is this like a theme thing?" Rachel nodded politely. "No theme. Just a request." The owner insisted. Vanessa hesitated. "And who exactly is the owner?" Rachel turned slowly. I stepped forward, wearing the suit, gloves off, scars visible. Her eyes widened. Her grip on her clutch slipped just slightly. I didn't blink. I didn't smile. I just said, "Still think I'm just a soldier?" The moment my voice reached her ears, she froze. Not dramatic. Not exaggerated. Just still. Her wine glass didn't make it to the table. Her smile didn't return. And her grip on her boyfriend's arm subtly slackened like she needed something to steady herself. The silence around table 1 was sharp. The kind of silence that doesn't ask questions, it demands answers. Her boyfriend leaned in with a confused laugh. "You know this guy?" She blinked. Her lips moved, but no words came out. I stepped closer. The distance between us wasn't much, just a few feet, but it felt like the Grand Canyon. "In case it's not obvious," I said evenly, "this is my place." Her eyes finally registered it. The logo on the wall. The photos. The decor that matched my taste. My discipline. "Do you own this?" she asked, voice soft, like she was asking the question just to delay the answer. I didn't say yes. I just gave her that same dead stare I wore walking out of that dinner months ago. The boyfriend scoffed. "Wait, this is the guy? This is your soldier X." She looked down, embarrassed. The tables around us were too focused on their food to notice the tension, but it wouldn't be long. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. "You called me just a soldier. Now you're standing in the middle of what that soldier built." Her mouth opened again. I cut her off. "I won't be serving you tonight," I said coldly. "But you'll be served." Then I turned to Rachel. "Seat them. Treat them like any other guest. No more, no less." Rachel nodded, but the atmosphere shifted. Vanessa sat down slowly, like the chair beneath her might vanish. Her new man didn't stop grinning. He had no idea he'd just walked into a storm built specifically for them. I went back behind the kitchen window. Not hiding, commanding. The staff didn't need instruction. They saw my posture and moved accordingly. Dishes were fired with surgical timing. No errors. No delays. Table 1 ordered the tasting menu. Of course they did. 5 courses. Each one built on the backbone of my memories, my history, my pain. I wanted them to taste all of it, and they would. The first course landed, ghost soup. A bone broth slow simmered for 16 hours, inspired by meals in the desert trenches. Rachel served it with a practiced calm, explaining only what was needed. "This is called ghost soup," she said. "It served to remind us of those who didn't make it home. Every bowl carries someone's name written on the base." Vanessa turned hers over. "The name, J. Hill." Her hands trembled. The boyfriend slurped it, clueless. "Pretty good. Little salty, though." Second course arrived, trauma tartare. Raw. Cold. Bloody red. Vanessa barely touched it. She was visibly rattled now, trying not to show it. Her boyfriend noticed. "You good?" he asked, chuckling. "This place has weird vibes, babe." She nodded faintly. "Yeah, just not that hungry suddenly." I watched as she squirmed, the food digging up memories she buried. Because it wasn't just food. It was a curated experience. A surgical strike on every false word she'd ever said. By the third course, her shoulders were hunched. She looked around, realizing it wasn't just the food that was heavy. It was the weight of being surrounded by everything she underestimated. And me? I never left the kitchen, but I never let her forget I was watching. The final course was last meal. Seared ribeye, mashed potatoes with gunpowder salt, served with a handwritten note. Every guest got one, written by a real veteran, sharing what they ate the night before deployment. Vanessa hesitated before opening hers. Her hand shook. It read, "I didn't know if I'd ever come back, so I ate what I'd eat if I didn't steak. Mashed potatoes. The comfort of home I might never taste again. MH." Her lips moved silently. MH. She looked up. Cruz stepped forward from the shadows now, entering the room like a general surveying the aftermath. He walked right past their table, casual, composed, and placed a sealed envelope beside her plate. She flinched. "For you," he said. "From the owner." Her boyfriend laughed. "Oh, great. A souvenir." She didn't laugh. She opened it slowly, hands barely steady enough to unfold the thick paper. Inside, a copy of her old letter to me, the one that once said, "I don't know who I'd be if you didn't come back." Underneath it, typed in clean bold, "You threw me away. I built something from the pieces. This is your last taste of what could have been." She pushed the plate away, eyes glassy, throat tight. Her boyfriend looked at the letter, then at her, puzzled. "You okay?" She stood up suddenly, almost knocking over her wine glass. But no one looked. Because here, in this place, she wasn't a queen anymore. She was just another ghost at a table I owned. The night after Vanessa walked out, the restaurant was quiet. Too quiet. I sat alone at the back table, still in my suit, watching the floor staff clean up. The smell of roasted garlic and scorched ambition hung in the air. Then the front door opened. It was after hours. No reservations. No reason. But she walked in like time hadn't passed. Lena. She used to be the only calm voice I heard during those post-deployment spirals. We met at a military PTSD workshop 2 years ago. We lost touch. Now she stood in my doorway, rain clinging to her jacket like the city itself had sent her back. "I saw your name on a feature," she said softly. "Didn't know if you remembered me." I stood slowly. "Of course I do." She looked around the restaurant, eyes scanning the bare steel and quiet elegance. "This is heavy. Beautiful, but heavy." "That's the point." I figured. There was a pause. "I heard about her," she said. "I always thought you deserved more." I gave a bitter smile. "I don't need more. I just needed to be seen." She nodded. "You've always been more than just the uniform." She didn't stay long. Just long enough to remind me not all people leave you worse than they found you. And when she walked back into the rain, I realized something. Not everyone from your past is meant to be erased. Some are just waiting for the storm to pass so they can return. We were prepping for another full night. Booked out, packed, buzzing. The staff was sharper than ever. Section 8 had become a name whispered in every VIP circle. A place you couldn't buy your way into. You had to earn it. That morning, Cruz pulled me aside, face tight. "Gotta tell you something before it hits the fan." I looked up from my station. Talk. He pulled out a slip, a supplier invoice. I read the top name. Recognized it instantly. Devron Cade. Vanessa's new man. I froze. You bought produce from him? Cruz raised his hands. I didn't know. New vendor sent by the distributor. The name was under a shell company. The rage that rose in my throat was ice cold. Do they know? Maybe. Maybe not. But if they did, it was a play. A move. I stared at the slip. My brand. My pain. My legacy. Being fed by the same hand that mocked me. That wasn't coincidence. That was infiltration. Sabotage. I called the supplier myself. Cold voice. Calm tone. Terminate the contract. Immediately. Send written confirmation or I'll drag your ass into court for breach of ethics. They complied fast. Still, the damage was done. Not to the food. To the trust. Cruz looked at me, guilt etched across his face. I screwed up, he said. I didn't respond. I just picked up the knife and kept chopping. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't come with a bang. Sometimes, it slips in through the back door, quiet, slick, and grinning. After the supplier stunt, we locked things down. No new vendors. No backdoor deliveries. Security cameras reviewed daily. The kitchen ran tighter than a military compound. But on the outside, Section 8 only grew. The wait list stretched 3 months. Celebrities posted vague pictures of dishes without captions. Critics whispered about the ghost owner who never gave interviews. It became a badge of honor just to get in. And we made it harder. We started rejecting influencers with massive followings. Declined a reality show's request to film a segment. Turned down 2 Forbes feature interviews. Cruz grinned. The more you say no, the more they want in. I nodded. Let them chase. We don't need to be found. They need to feel like they earned us. We called it the waitlist game. But it wasn't a game to us. It was power. And then, another name appeared. Parker. Not Vanessa. Her sister, Lauren. With their parents. Table 1. Again. Cruz looked at me. You want me to block it? I shook my head. No. Accept it. You sure? They want another taste? I said. Let them choke on it. He laughed. But it wasn't funny. Not anymore. This wasn't revenge. This was a reckoning. And they were buying tickets to their own exposure. Saturday night. Full house. Everything was clockwork. The dining room glowed with low amber light. Wine glasses sparkled. Dishes hit the pass in perfect cadence. Then Rachel walked into the kitchen again, tablet in hand. Got another Parker on the wait list. I didn't look up. Her again. Not her. Her sister. Lauren. With their parents. I paused mid-slice. Lauren had always been the quieter one. Smiled more. Talked less. But I remembered her laughing that night. When Vanessa made the joke. When I was humiliated. She laughed too. They requested table 1. Rachel added carefully. Cruz leaned against the prep counter. You want to block it? I stared at the floor for a beat. No music played. Just the subtle hum of fans and knives on boards. No. Let them come. Table 1 again. Rachel asked. Exactly. I cleaned the blade, ran a towel over the cutting board, and stepped out from behind the kitchen window, just for a second. Enough to remind the room who ran it. When I returned, I said one thing. Make sure they're seated facing the window. The Parkers came in like they owned the place. Lauren, their parents, dressed to the nines. The mother wore pearls like armor. The father walked like his shoes cost more than someone's rent. They didn't recognize me at first, which was funny, because they weren't just guests. They were part of the origin story. Rachel greeted them with the same poised tone as before. No special treatment. No greetings beyond protocol. Just professionalism. I watched from behind the line. Their first course arrived. Dishonorable discharge. Short rib. Braised until the bone wept. Served over grits with peppered vinegar, just like I remembered from Vanessa's family dinners. Lauren took a bite and smiled, nostalgic. This tastes just like Mom's. The father chuckled. Better than Mom's. That's when Rachel stepped in. This dish was inspired by a dinner where the chef was publicly mocked for his service. Silence. Lauren blinked. Excuse me. Rachel continued. He took that pain, turned it into process, and built this from nothing. The father straightened. Is this some kind of stunt? Cruz appeared from the shadows, folded his arms. No stunt, just a lesson. The mother paled. And that's when I stepped out again, calm, composed. Their eyes went wide. Marcus, Lauren stammered. I didn't know. You laughed, I said quietly. All of you did. That night. You watched her say it. And you said nothing. The mother opened her mouth, but I cut her off. You don't get to rewrite the past. You just get to taste it, served with everything you lost. Then I nodded to Rachel. Bring the second course. After the Parkers left, faces red, heads down, the whispers got louder. People started asking questions. Guests began to sense something beneath the elegance. A story, a history, a ghost they couldn't name. We didn't confirm anything. Mystery was power, and power was what we needed now. Because 2 weeks later, another reservation came in. Vanessa. Again. Table 1. But this time, it wasn't just her. The name on the reservation form read, Vanessa Parker, Engagement Celebration. Party of 2. Cruz read it aloud. I said nothing. He looked at me. She's doing this on purpose now. She wants attention. She wants a reaction. I smiled faintly. Then let's give her one. But not what she expects. That week, I redesigned the entire Table 1 service experience. A new 5-course progression. Each dish named after a moment she weaponized against me. I had the staff trained to precision. Not to humiliate. To reveal. To make her feel everything she tried to erase. Because I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was building a mirror. And she was about to sit in front of it and watch herself disappear. The day of her engagement dinner arrived. The restaurant buzzed quietly, controlled chaos. Our staff wasn't just ready. They were synced, like a trained squad walking into a high-stakes mission. I gathered them for the pre-service briefing. Table 1 tonight is different, I said, voice steady. But we treat them no different. Precision, control, timing. I looked around. My cooks, my servers, my floor lead. Each of them carried their own weight, but they trusted mine more. No one mentions her name, I continued. No whispers. No looks. She gets the same as every guest. Excellence. Rachel stepped forward. And the menu? I nodded. Said. Locked. She'll experience it like any other guest, except she'll feel it in ways she won't understand until it's too late. I handed Rachel a sealed envelope. When dessert hits, deliver this. She took it with a slight nod. No questions. We ran a dry rehearsal that afternoon. Course by course. Timing. Spacing. Visual delivery. Everything had to be flawless, not just to impress. To expose. By the time the sun set, the restaurant looked like a battlefield before the first shot. Spotless, silent, deadly. I stared at Table 1. Then I whispered to myself, let her come. 2 hours before service, as I tightened my cuffs and reviewed the order sheet, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One line in the message. You don't know what she really did. Check your deployment paperwork. Attached was a screenshot, a visitor log from the hospital in Germany, where I'd been sent after the mortar blast. Name, Vanessa Parker. Date, 2 days after the injury. Reason, medical proxy. Signature granted. Status, authorized contact. I froze. My hand stopped moving. I clicked on the second image. Bank withdrawal record. Same day, same hour. $10,000. Gone. Pulled from my military savings. A signature that looked like mine. But it wasn't mine. Cruz saw the screen from across the room. What is that? He asked, stepping closer. I didn't answer. I just scrolled to the third image, a podcast cover. War Stories, Episode 8, My Soldier X Almost Died. I profited from it. Voice clip attached. Her voice. Laughing. I mean, yeah, he got hit pretty bad, but honestly, it gave me perspective. And yeah, I sold a couple rights. I was struggling. He wasn't even conscious when I signed the withdrawal. Cruz looked like he'd just been sucker punched. She cashed in on your coma? I nodded slowly. She didn't just betray me. I whispered. She used me while I was bleeding on a foreign floor. Silence swallowed the kitchen. The plan for the evening hadn't changed, but my purpose had. This wasn't just closure anymore. It was exposure. An hour before Vanessa's reservation, I drove to my old Army liaison's office. A quiet building, low security, but everything archived. I walked in with one thing, the screenshot. The officer on duty was someone I'd trained with once, Sergeant Bennett. He recognized me immediately. "Hill, you look like hell." I tossed the file onto the desk. "I need to verify this. Was Vanessa Parker ever given financial access while I was under sedation?" He read it, frowned. Then he pulled up the database. "I remember this mess," he muttered. "You had a concussion, internal bleeding, mild skull fracture. Out cold for 36 hours. We had no official family contact, so wait." His eyes narrowed. "Here it is. Medical proxy authorization granted via forged DD-93. She submitted a version of your emergency form. Looked legit. But she wasn't on the original." I clenched my jaw. "She wasn't even supposed to be there." Bennett nodded. "Yeah. She showed up with a sob story. Said she was your fiancée. We had her sign a restricted access waiver. Didn't catch the forgery until months later." "And the money?" He scrolled. "Yep. 10 grand. Discretionary fund. She claimed she needed it to fly you home. Never did." I stood in silence. Bennett looked up. "You want to file a claim?" I shook my head. "Not yet. Because legal action would come later. Tonight, she'd get something worse. Truth. Served in 5 courses. And a final dessert that'd taste like justice." I sat in the back office of Section 8, lights dim, door locked, the file folder open in front of me. My own medical history. My own bank records. All tainted. All exploited. And all signed by her. The woman who once kissed me through grainy video calls. The woman who promised she'd wait. The woman who smiled at the dinner table, mocking me, while already cashing in on my injury. I remembered the day I woke up in that German hospital confused, sore, half-drugged, and the nurse saying, "Your fiancée came by. Said she had to return early." I didn't question it then. Now, every lie she told echoed louder. She hadn't just walked away. She looted my life, then laughed about it on a podcast. I printed the documents, made a copy of the audio file, backed everything up on 2 flash drives. One I'd keep. One would be delivered with dessert. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was clarity, and the truth would come plated with silver forks and fine wine. Cruz knocked on the door. "You ready for tonight?" I looked up, calm now. "She thinks this is her victory lap," I said. "Her engagement. Her trophy." Cruz smirked. "She has no idea she's walking into her own sentencing." I slipped the flash drive into the envelope and sealed it. "Let's cook." The engagement party arrived right on time. Vanessa walked in like she owned the air, dressed in a silk gown, ring gleaming like it had its own spotlight. Her fiancé followed, Devron Cade. Silicon Valley wealth in a tailored jacket and arrogance too big for the room. Rachel greeted them with a warm, rehearsed smile. "Welcome to Section 8. Table 1 is waiting." They were led right to the front, where every course would arrive slowly, with meaning. And across the room, 2 quiet figures sat unnoticed, a podcast producer and a freelance journalist, both with instructions to observe, eat, and listen. I'd invited them anonymously, because the truth doesn't just need to be served, it needs to be witnessed. The meal began. First course, broken vow broth. A rich, complex base, made from bone marrow and tiers of shallots. This dish, Rachel said softly to the table, was inspired by betrayal in uniform. Vanessa barely reacted. Devron made a joke. Second course, proxy steak carved tableside. She flinched as the knife cut through the meat. Subtle, but there. The third dish was silent theft, a delicate pastry filled with nothing but smoke. Beautiful. Hollow. Meaningful. Vanessa looked straight at the kitchen window now. She recognized the rhythm. This wasn't a celebration. It was a reckoning. And the final act was only 1 plate away. After the third course, I stepped out for air. The alley behind the restaurant was cold, damp. I needed a minute. Not to think. To lock in. Cruz followed, lighting a cigarette. He didn't speak right away. Then he said, "I should have told you." I turned. "Told me what?" He exhaled. "About the signature. About her access to your account." I knew something was off. One of my old buddies flagged it 6 months ago. My fists clenched slowly. "You waited until now?" He looked away. "You were in a dark place, man. Building this restaurant was the first time I saw you breathe again. I didn't want to risk derailing it." I didn't yell, didn't curse. I just nodded slowly. "Pain delayed is pain multiplied," I said. He nodded. "I know. I trusted you. And I still got your back." He pulled something from his jacket, a small box. Inside was a single, thick flash drive. "What's this?" "Her full podcast. Unedited. The version they cut before release." She said a lot worse. I called in a favor. I stared at it for a long second, then took it and pocketed it. "You've still got my back?" I asked. "Until the kitchen burns down," he replied. "Good," I said. "Because tonight, she's going to watch the whole thing burn." The service ran like war drums, steady, rhythmic, relentless. Course after course landed in front of Vanessa and Devron like loaded statements. She picked at them now, barely touched her wine. That cocky grin she were walking in, gone, replaced by a nervous edge. Her eyes flicked toward the kitchen more than the food. I watched from the far wall, arms folded, calm, until I saw her lean in and whisper something to Devron. He laughed again, like he was still in control. And that's when something cracked, not in the restaurant, but in me. I turned and walked into the wine room, floor-to-ceiling glass. Rows of aged reds, whites, vintages from every continent. I picked the one bottle I'd been saving for opening night, the one she gifted me the night I enlisted. She said, "For when you come back alive." I held it in both hands, then slammed it against the glass wall. The crash was like a gunshot. The staff flinched. Rachel turned sharply. Cruz didn't move. I picked up the largest shard, stared at my reflection in its jagged surface. I wasn't broken. I was awake. I dropped the glass and walked back into the kitchen. "Push dessert," I told Rachel. She hesitated. "It's early." "She's not staying for coffee." Rachel placed the dessert carefully in front of them. A single-layered cake, a charcoal dark, dusted with gold leaf. Name, Echoes. Inside it, a compartment, small, hidden beneath the top layer. Rachel leaned in and placed the envelope beside it. "Compliments of the owner," she said, then walked away. Vanessa touched the envelope slowly. Devron, still unfazed, reached for his spoon, but she stopped him. "Wait," she whispered. She opened the envelope, pulled out a single flash drive and a folded sheet of paper. As her eyes scanned it, her face strained. She looked up, panic flickering behind her carefully curated lashes. She whispered something to Devron. He grabbed the paper and read it. I watched from the shadows as his eyes narrowed. "What is this?" he asked. Not to her. To himself. She didn't answer. He read further, and then it clicked. His name was on the transaction logs. Not directly, but close enough to trace. The shell company used to funnel stolen military funds? Linked to one of his firms. She looked at him, her voice barely audible. "Dev, I didn't know he'd connect the dots." He stood up so fast his chair screeched backward. "You said this was old news," he hissed. "You said he didn't know." She tried to reach for him. It wasn't like that, but he was already walking. Not out of anger, out of fear. Because Marcus Hill wasn't just a wounded ex. He was a man with evidence and a platform. And now the fire wasn't just under Vanessa, it was under both of them. After Devron left, Vanessa sat in stunned silence. Dessert untouched. Letter open. Flash drive sitting on her now empty plate like a loaded weapon. She didn't cry. Not yet. But the walls were cracking. I watched from behind the kitchen pass, arms crossed, the staff tense but quiet around me. Then one of the servers, Liam, ex-Marine, quiet guy, stepped beside me. "You want me to walk her out?" he asked, voice calm. "No," I said. She walked me into shame. Let her walk herself out of this. Liam nodded once and returned to service. A few minutes passed. Then she stood, slowly, like her feet had forgotten how. She looked around the restaurant, really looked this time. Saw the team, the scars, the photos on the walls. She was surrounded by the very thing she had once mocked, and none of it needed her approval. Rachel approached her gently. Would you like the rest boxed? Vanessa blinked, stunned. Rachel smiled politely. It's tradition. We never let any part of the story go to waste. Vanessa shook her head. No, I'm fine. But she wasn't. She walked out without a word. No applause. No dramatic collapse. Just silence. And as soon as the door clicked shut behind her, Cruz turned to me. You win. I shook my head. This wasn't about winning. Liam smirked. Looked like it from here. No, I said. This was about remembering. Because long before she forgot who I was, I had to remember it myself. 3 days later, a manila envelope arrived at the front desk. Marked, legal delivery, confidential. Rachel brought it to the back office while I was reviewing invoices. Should I open it? She asked. No, I said, reaching for it. This one's mine. Inside, a cease and desist letter. From Vanessa's lawyer. Claiming defamation, privacy invasion, emotional damage from a hostile business environment. Cruz looked over my shoulder. She's really trying to flip this? I handed him the flash drive from the engagement night. Send them the podcast. The raw version. He grinned. You sure? Also attach the hospital file. Deployment signature logs. Timeline. Everything. Cruz nodded. Copy. But what if they push? They won't. Because now it wasn't about her story. It was about facts. And facts don't care about her designer tears. Later that evening, I walked into the kitchen and held up the envelope in front of the team. This is how some people handle the truth, I said. Liam, scared of mirrors, huh? I smiled. Then we'll give them bigger ones. The staff laughed. Not out of disrespect. Out of pride. Because Section 8 wasn't just surviving. It was thriving under fire. 2 days later, another booking came through. Rachel knocked gently on my office door. She had that look, the one she wore when something didn't sit right. She handed me the tablet. I read it slowly. Parker family, private event. Full table buyout. Requested under a corporate booking account. But I recognized the name embedded in the email string, Lauren Parker. They're trying to stage something, Cruz muttered. Desperate damage control, Rachel said. I looked up. They want a private event. Fine. You're actually letting them in? Cruz asked. No. I'm letting them see what they missed. One final performance. I tapped the screen and approved the reservation. Give them everything, I said. Every course. Every flavor. Every memory. No edits. Cruz leaned in. Full protocol? Full. Let them feel what it's like to sit in a world they'll never belong to again. It was a Friday. The lights were dimmed. Tables were removed. Just one long center table remained. The Parker family walked in dressed like royalty. Lauren led the way. Her parents followed. Vanessa? She came in last, face cold, ringless. Rachel greeted them with neutral warmth. We've prepared a special menu for you tonight. Hand-curated by the owner. No questions. No small talk. Only tension. The music was different tonight. A soft orchestral score that swelled and dipped like a memory you couldn't quite name. I stepped into view. Not from the kitchen. From the front door. Suited. Steady. Silent. Their eyes followed me as I walked the perimeter of the room. Then I spoke. No speeches tonight. Just dinner. Just the truth, served hot. The first course came out. False start. A hollow pastry filled with steam. Beautiful but empty. Rachel placed it and leaned toward Vanessa. The owner has asked if you'd like to serve the final course yourself tonight. Vanessa blinked. Excuse me. Lauren cut in, defensive. That's not funny. But Rachel didn't smile. Not a joke. He said it would be poetic. Vanessa looked down, then back at me. I held her gaze, didn't blink. She swallowed hard. I'll do it. Rachel simply nodded and moved on. Each course after that was sharper, heavier, named for memories, regrets, silences they thought I'd forgotten. Overwatch salad, a dish served in pairs, one cold, one warm. Debt and honor, tender cuts served with a bitter reduction. By the fifth course, Vanessa's hands were trembling. Then dessert came, and with it, closure. Vanessa carried the final plate herself. She walked it to her parents, placed it, then Lauren, then finally me. One plate, identical. Except mine had something extra, a folded letter. The same one she forged. She saw it before I did. Stopped mid-step. I took it and stood up. Held it high so they could all see. This is the paper you signed while I was unconscious. This is the signature you forged. This is the money you took. Lauren's eyes widened. The father went pale. Vanessa stared at the letter like it might catch fire in her hands. I set it on the table. You didn't just break my heart. You signed my name like it was yours to use. You told the world I was disposable. Then I looked around. But tonight, you're the ones who leave empty. Silence. I turned to my staff. Pack up the rest. They've had enough. The next morning, Vanessa's family received their second serving, this one in manila envelopes. Rachel walked into the restaurant holding a delivery slip from the courier service. They've all been served, she said. Signed, time-stamped. Cruz handed me a copy of the legal packet, a full audit of the withdrawn military funds, a notarized copy of the forged signature, a subpoena request, the audio from the podcast unedited, all admissible, all damning. Vanessa hadn't responded to any messages. Not to me, not to her lawyer, not even to Devron, who'd vanished from the public eye after the flash drive went viral in the journalist's article. She was silent now because she had nowhere else to hide. Cruz leaned back against the bar. You ever think you'd be the one holding the pen? I folded the packet. She brought the war to my doorstep. I just fought back with paperwork. There was no rage in my voice. No fire. Just a steady calm. Because real power isn't in shouting. It's in being undeniable. 3 days later, I came in early, quiet hours, before the team arrived. She was already sitting in the corner booth. Hair tied back. No makeup. No jewelry. A hoodie that hung off her shoulders like she didn't know how to wear comfort anymore. I didn't sit. She looked up slowly. I shouldn't have come unannounced, she said. You shouldn't have come at all. She swallowed hard. I just wanted to say what I did. I wasn't thinking straight. Stop. She flinched at the word. I was unconscious in a hospital bed. You signed my name. Took my money. Sold my pain for clout. And laughed while doing it. Tears welled up. I lost everything too. No, I said sharply. You threw away everything. I just watched. She reached into her pocket and slid a check across the table. I know it's not enough. I pushed it back without touching it. You don't get to buy your way back from this. This isn't guilt you get to cash out. She looked small then. Like the illusion of control she always carried had finally cracked and leaked out. You hate me, she whispered. No, I said. I just finally see you. I walked away. And this time, she didn't chase. A week later, the Parkers made headlines not for glamour, not for some new business deal. Fraud investigation. Conspiracy. Civil charges pending. Turns out, the forged withdrawal and podcast weren't isolated. Lauren had pulled similar stunts with another relative's insurance settlement. Their father had funneled tax money through a real estate shell company. Guess who signed as witness? The thread had been pulled, and the entire fabric of their legacy unraveled in public view. Rachel brought me a copy of the latest news article, fresh off the press. Headline, From Society Darlings to Legal Disgrace, the Parkers Face Collapse. I read it once, then folded it, walked to the kitchen, and slid it into the trash. I thought you'd frame it, Cruz joked. No, I said. We're done serving them. He smiled. Then who do we feed now? I looked around the kitchen, the staff prepping, the ovens warming. People who never asked for a spotlight. People who need space to be whole again. 2 weeks later, I stood in court for the final time. My lawyer handled the main case, but I came for the statement. The judge gave me 5 minutes. I stood, suit clean, voice clear. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because there are thousands of veterans who come home broken, forgotten, and used. I was nearly one of them. But instead of fading, I fought back. And I built something stronger than the lies used to tear me down. I looked toward Vanessa. She didn't meet my eyes. I don't want her jailed, I continued. I want her remembering. Every time she sees Section 8's name in a headline, Every time someone walks through its doors, she'll remember what she could have stood beside. The courtroom was silent. The judge nodded. Motion granted. Sentence reduced to restitution, public apology, and full financial penalty. No jail. But your name will follow your actions now. Outside, cameras waited. I didn't stop for them. I walked past the flashing lights and into the quiet sunlight, finally, without wait. The restaurant was closed for the first time in 6 months. No reservations. No noise. Just me, alone in the space I'd built from nothing. I walked to the wall near the kitchen, the one no guest ever noticed. Behind it, hidden in the drywall, was something only Cruz and I knew about. A sealed metal box. I pried it open and pulled out the contents. My old unit patch. The engagement ring I never gave. A burnt piece of letterhead from the night I set the fire in the sink. A small photo of Jeff, my friend who never made it back. Everything I thought I needed to carry. I looked at the items in my hand and didn't feel pain anymore. Just gratitude. These things weren't my identity. They were chapters. Not the whole book. I put everything back, sealed the wall, and walked out into the main room. Rachel was waiting. "You sure you're okay being here today?" she asked. I nodded. I'm not tied to this place. I chose it. And that was the difference now. I didn't need this restaurant to be someone. I was someone who built this restaurant. I found Lena again. Not through some grand scene. Just a quiet message. A shared photo. A moment where life slowed down enough to remember who I was before the chaos. We met at a small cafe across the city, neutral ground. She smiled when she saw me. "You look different. Older." I joked. "No. Clearer." We talked for 2 hours. Not about Vanessa. Not about court. About books. About food. About what silence feels like when it's finally safe. She wasn't impressed by the headlines. She was impressed I had healed without becoming hollow. "Would you want to see the restaurant?" I asked her finally. "Only if we're not going there to be seen," she said. I smiled. "Then we'll go after hours." And just like that, I remembered something I thought I'd lost. You don't always need to be loud to feel alive. 3 months later, Section 8 opened its second location. This one wasn't elite. It was intentional. Smaller space. No press. Built in the heart of a neighborhood where too many ex-soldiers slipped through the cracks. We hired from shelters, from trauma centers, from VA programs. Every chef had a story. Every server had been overlooked before. And inside those walls, they weren't broken anymore. They were part of something that understood them. Cruz walked through the doors that night with a crate of knives and a look of pride only men who've bled together can share. "You really did it," he said. "No," I replied. "We did." He raised a brow. "Still not taking credit?" I smirked. "Taking peace instead." And honestly, that felt louder than any victory speech. Months passed. The Parker name faded from headlines. Vanessa moved away. Rumors said a coastal town, far from the circles she once ruled. The podcast was taken down. The settlement paid in full. The lawsuit sealed. But I never Googled her again. Because I wasn't chasing the past anymore. I was building the future. Section 8 was now a name that stood for discipline, dignity, and second chances. Veterans walked in unsure, left steady. Customers came in for food, left with perspective. And I cooked. Not every day, but often enough to remember what hands were for, not to hurt, to create. One night, Lena came in quietly and sat at the bar. I joined her. She looked around and said, "Does it ever get easier?" I answered without thinking. "No, but it gets worth it." It was a Sunday. No service. Just me walking the floor of the original Section 8. The lights were low. The air smelled faintly of rosemary and citrus cleaner. The kind of stillness that didn't feel empty, just resting. I ran my hand along the edge of table 1. The infamous table. The one where it all began. The one where it ended. We never labeled the tables with numbers. Just positions. The guests never knew. But we knew. I stood behind the kitchen pass and looked out. Not at the chairs. Not at the cutlery. At the space itself. What it meant. Cruz entered, quiet as always, holding 2 coffees. "Didn't think you'd still be here," he said, handing me one. I took a sip. Figured I owed the room a goodbye. You selling it? I nodded. The new team's ready. Vet run. Fully trained. This place doesn't need me hovering over it anymore. He looked around, then back at me. This was never about revenge, was it? It started that way, I admitted. But it became something else. A mirror. A mirror I no longer need to look into. He smiled. Proud of you. I looked at him. Thanks, I said. But I'm prouder I didn't stay angry. That's the part no one teaches you. We sat for a while in silence. Then I stood up, walked to the front door, and turned the sign from closed to legacy in progress. And for the first time, I walked away not because I was broken, but because I was whole. That night, I sat in my apartment, lights low, windows open. The city breathed below. I reached into my drawer and pulled out the old dog tag, Jeff's. Scratched. Faded. But still mine. I placed it beside a blank piece of paper and picked up a pen. Dear Jeff, I know you never made it home. I used to think that meant I had to live for both of us. Carry the weight. Make it mean something. But I learned something over these past months. Surviving isn't the same as living. I've been angry, broken, lost. But I built something real. And for the first time, I'm not surviving because I owe it to you. I'm living because I finally know what I want from this life. Peace. Purpose. Not revenge. Not approval. I still hear your voice sometimes. And I hope, wherever you are, you're proud. Because I didn't just come back. I came back changed. Better. Not because of what happened to me, but because I chose not to let it define me. Your memory built the foundation. But I built the walls. Marcus, I folded the letter, placed it in the box with his tag, and sealed it. Then I opened the window wider, let the air rush in, and closed my eyes. For once, I didn't feel haunted. I felt ready. The new Section 8 was already making waves, smaller, humbler, but filled with soul. The kind of place where silence wasn't awkward. It was respected. One night, after a long shift training the new team, I stayed behind. Just me, the lights, and one plated dish left from the night's specials. I walked it out to the farthest corner table. Set it down. No guest. No number. Just a table for one. I pulled out a chair and sat. Across from me, a framed photo of my unit. I wasn't there to mourn. I was there to remember. To honor, not what I'd lost, but what I carried forward. I took one bite. Closed my eyes. The flavor was sharp. Smoked. Clean. And I felt something settle inside me. Not a memory. Not even pride. Peace. Rachel walked in quietly, stopped when she saw me. You good? She asked softly. I nodded. Yeah. Finally. She smiled, then stepped forward and lit the candle on the table. For the ones who didn't come home, she said. And the ones who made it back, but had to rebuild. She sat down beside me. No words after that. Just silence. The good kind. It's been 1 year. Section 8 is no longer a secret. It's a movement, a message, a reminder that pain is not weakness, and silence doesn't mean surrender. People walk through our doors every day carrying battles no one sees. And they leave with something simple but rare, dignity. Me? I don't serve revenge anymore. I serve meals. I don't chase closure. I create space for it. Sometimes people ask if I regret everything it took to get here. And the truth is, I don't. Because what nearly broke me, built me. Because the ones who laughed at me from across the table, they're gone. And the ones still seated? They see me now. Fully. But before we close this book, I want to leave you with something. A question. One that still sits with me at the end of every shift. Every night I lock up and walk home alone. Have you ever been treated like you were nothing, only to rise and become something they could never reach again? If you have, I see you. And if this story meant something to you, if you felt every turn, every word, every quiet burn, drop a comment and tell me. Where are you watching from? I want to know who you are. And if you're still here after all this, you already know what to do. Like the video, drop your story in the comments, subscribe. Not just because it helps, but because these stories aren't fiction for everyone. They're real reminders that healing isn't loud, but it is powerful. This is Marcus, and this was my table. Fade to black. Cue soft instrumental. Just piano and wind. The flame on the table flickers once and holds.